Welcome back to She Will Empower. I'm your host, Jessica Cherry. I'm a strategic intervention and empowerment coach, an NLP practitioner, a networking and empowerment community director, a certified sound bath practitioner, social media and marketing gal, and your Tuesday morning wake up club host on 94.3 KWVH Wimberley Valley Radio, where we bring real talk, real tools, and real empowerment straight to the airwaves. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. And if you're listening on the podcast replay, welcome to this space where we talk about mindset, growth, psychology, and real life decisions that shape who we become. This show is for people who are trying to do better in life, the ones building businesses and careers, the ones raising kids, the ones caring for aging parents, the ones reinventing themselves. And today, I think this conversation might be exactly what some of us need, because can we just take a second and acknowledge something? How in the world are we already halfway through 2026? How is that possible? Seriously, didn't we just celebrate New Year's? I mean, I feel like I just celebrated New Year's. Or didn't we just make the vision boards? Didn't we just promise ourselves that this would be our year? Like the year we would finally lose the weight or launch the business or stop the people pleasing, the year that we would prioritize ourselves, the year we'd get healthy, we stop settling, all the things, right? This year was going to be the year that the version of ourselves was the best one, right? We've been talking about that for years, and yet here we are, halfway through the year. And if I'm being honest, I think some of us feel like we're running in circles. Some of us feel exhausted, some of us feel behind, and some of us feel discouraged. And some of us have quietly stopped talking about the dreams that we were so excited about back in January. And if that's you today, I need you to hear something. You're not behind, and you are definitely not out of time. But this is your wake up call, because 6 months from now, just 6 short months, December 31st, it is coming whether you're ready for it or not. And the question is not, is time going to pass? Because it's going to pass. The question is, what are you going to do with the time that's left? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Not from a place of guilt, not from a place of shame, not from a place of you should be further along. No, I'm not about that. We're going to take this from a place of empowerment, because empowerment says, I can acknowledge where I am without judging myself, okay? I can take responsibility without beating myself up about it. And I can start again as many times as I need to. And that's what today is about. Starting again, not next Monday, not next month, not January 1st, today. Because what I've noticed is this: a lot of people spend the first half of the year chasing motivation, just chasing it. Motivation's there and you're right behind it. But successful people, they build momentum. And that's a massive difference. Motivation is emotional. Momentum is behavioral, right? Motivation, it comes and goes. Sometimes we just don't feel like it. Momentum carries you when motivation disappears. And if you've been waiting to feel motivated before taking action, you may be waiting forever, okay? Can we have some real talk here for a minute? I think social media has convinced us that successful people wake up every morning with that glorious cup of coffee, inspired, focused, disciplined, ready to conquer the world. But that's just not reality. Most successful people don't feel motivated every day. They simply keep moving. They keep pushing the needle forward, even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it, because they understand something powerful. Action creates motivation, not the other way around, okay? So, if you're sitting around waiting for the magical motivation fairy to arrive and sprinkle productivity tests all over your life, you might be waiting a very long time. And trust me, I've been there. I want the magical motivation fairy, but it's never coming. In fact, one of the reasons I wanted to record this episode is because I recently found myself slipping into that weird place. You know the place. You're technically doing things, you're answering emails, you're handling the responsibilities, you're taking care of everybody else, you're showing up, right? But internally, you feel disconnected. You feel uninspired. You feel like you're just checking boxes and you feel like life is happening to you instead of being created by you. Have you ever felt that? I have felt that. Like you're busy all day, but somehow not moving forward. Like you're exhausted, but don't even know exactly why. And like your days are full, but your soul feels empty. That is the danger zone because many people think a rut looks like doing nothing, but it's not true. Sometimes a rut looks like doing the same things over and over and over and over again. And sometimes a rut looks like survival mode. And sometimes a rut can feel like being productive without being purposeful. And I think that is where a lot of people find themselves right now in mid year, especially, I've seen this, people over 30 or 40, especially parents or caregivers or entrepreneurs and people who are carrying everyone else's emotional baggage while trying to keep their own lives together. You become so focused on surviving that you stop dreaming. You stop imagining. You stop creating. You stop asking yourself what you want. And before you know it, months go by, then years. Then one day you wake up and wonder, what happened, right? What happened to me? Where did the ambitious person go? Where did the excited person go? Where did the creativity go? Where did that version of me go that used to believe that anything was possible, right? And that's the question I want us to explore today because I don't think they're gone. I think they're just buried. Buried under the responsibilities, the expectations, exhaustion, buried under obligations, under everyone else's needs, but they're still there, waiting, patiently waiting for you to remember who you are. Now, let's talk about something nobody really talks about. And I've talked about it. I don't like this topic, but it's an important one. It is comfort zones. Yes, we're going to go there because if we're being honest, comfort zones are so sneaky. See, look, nobody wakes up and says, I will think I'll spend the next 10 years limiting myself. That sounds like such a great idea, right? Nobody says that. What happens is instead much more subtle. We get comfortable. We get comfortable with routines. We get comfortable with habits, with excuses. We get comfortable with postponing and waiting and saying things like, I'll just wait, life will settle down, or when the kids are older, I'll do this, or when I have more money or more time, right? That's a popular one. When I have more time, I'll do it. Or this one, when I feel ready. And before we know it, the excuses become identities. Those delays become years. Those years become regrets. And one of my favorite quotes is, the life you want is hiding on the other side of the things you're avoiding. And I'm going to say that again really slow so that you take it to heart here. The life that you want is hiding on the other side of the things you're avoiding. And maybe it's a phone call, and maybe it's the business you want to start. Maybe it's the boundary or the difficult conversation. Maybe it's the application. Maybe it's a podcast. Hey, hello, right? Maybe it's a social media account or finally putting yourself out there, whatever it is. The next level requires movement, and movement requires courage, not confidence, courage, because confidence comes later. Confidence is the reward, but courage, that is the requirement. And so I think so many people get this backwards. They think, I'll do it when I feel confident. No, you feel confident because you did it, right? That's a big difference. The person who starts the business isn't confident first. The person who leaves a toxic relationship isn't confident first. Or the person that writes the book isn't confident first. Or who gets on the stage isn't confident first. They become confident because they were courageous enough to begin. And if I could sit across somebody listening right now, I want to ask one simple question. What have you been waiting to feel ready for? Seriously, what is it? What goal, what idea, what opportunity, what version of yourself? Because you're more ready than you think. Maybe you're waiting for certainty that'll never come. And maybe you're waiting for permission that nobody's going to give you. And maybe you're wanting a guarantee that doesn't exist. And maybe the answer is simply to begin. Just begin, just start. Be like Nike, right? Messy, imperfect, unprepared, awkward, human. Just begin. Because 6 months from now, you're either going to have 6 months of progress or 6 months of excuses. And I know that sounds a little harsh and direct, but sometimes we need direct, right? Sometimes empowerment isn't soft. Sometimes empowerment is a mirror. And today, I want this episode to be your personal mirror, not to judge you or criticize you. It's not what I do. I don't like that, but to help you see yourself clearly and to help you remember that your story isn't finished and your dreams still matter because they do. You do. You absolutely do. And so ask yourself this question. What if I'm not actually stuck? Right? What if you're not lazy? What if you're not unmotivated? What if you're not failing? Your brain, let me tell you something about your brain. What if your brain is simply doing exactly what it was designed to do? Hear me out here, because I think this realization changes everything. So many spend years beating themselves up. I just talked to a girl maybe 2 days ago that is beating herself up right now, and I am like, no girl, no, you're not lazy. You do have discipline. Don't start telling yourself you'll never finish anything or you're a quitter, all those things. Stop feeding your brain that. And the more that they repeat these stories, the more they believe them. But neuroscience tells us something fascinating. Your brain has one primary job, and contrary to popular belief, that job is to not make you successful. It's not helping you launch your business. It's not helping you lose weight or helping you write the book. It's none of that. Your brain's primary job is survival. That's it. Safety, protection, conservation of energy, avoiding risk, avoiding uncertainty, just keeping you alive, which means every single time you try to grow, your brain often interprets growth as danger. Let that sink in. Growth feels exciting to your soul, right? But it often feels threatening to your nervous system. And that's why every time you decide you're going to do something big, weird things start happening. You suddenly become tired, you're suddenly distracted, or you suddenly need to reorganize your closet or start doubting yourself. You suddenly convince yourself that maybe now isn't the right time. Sound familiar? And it's not because you're not incapable of it, it's because your brain loves familiarity. And even when familiarity is making you miserable. Think about that for a minute. Isn't that crazy? Your brain would rather keep you in a familiar pattern and problem than introduce you to an unfamiliar solution. And that's why people stay in jobs they hate, or relationships that drain them, or habits that sabotage them, or patterns that keep them stuck. Not because they enjoy the suffering, no, but because suffering has become familiar, and familiar feels safe. And this is why change can feel so uncomfortable. And it's also why so many people quit right before the breakthrough, because the closer you get to growth, the louder your fear becomes. So your brain starts asking questions like, who do you think you are? What if you fail? What if people judge you? What if you embarrass yourself, right? What if it doesn't work? And because those questions feel uncomfortable, many people retreat. They go back to what they know, back to their comfort zone, back to the life they've outgrown. And then they wonder why they feel so unfulfilled. And it's because growth and comfort cannot occupy the same space really long. They just can't. You have to choose. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you need to be hustling 24 hours a day. That's burnout. That's not empowerment. That's exhaustion. Burning the candle at both ends is just not possible long term. What I'm saying is that if you feel stagnant, there's a good chance you've stopped stretching yourself. And stretching doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be this putty thing that you're just stretch, stretch. It's not that. Stretching could mean sending the email that you've been postponing, right? Making the phone call, posting the video, applying for the opportunity, attending a networking event, or starting the workout, setting the boundary, having the conversation. It's tiny acts of courage. That's all it is, just tiny acts, right? Because here's the thing that neuroscience also teaches us: your brain learns through evidence, not affirmations alone. Don't come after me here. I absolutely love affirmations. You know I do. But affirmations without action eventually become wishful thinking. Your brain builds confidence from proof, evidence, experiences, repeated wins. For example, I'm going to give you an example. If every day you tell yourself, I am confident, I am a confident person, but you never, ever, ever take action, your brain doesn't fully believe you. But if you take one brave action today and another tomorrow and another next week, your brain is now collecting the evidence that you are. And suddenly confidence becomes believable, right? Confidence isn't built by thinking, confidence is built by doing, right? And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years is that action creates evidence, evidence creates confidence, confidence creates momentum, momentum creates transformation. And let me say that again because it's important. I want you to truly embody this and live your life amazingly beautiful, right? So action creates evidence. Evidence creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum creates transformation. And most people are trying to skip the first step of action, right? They're waiting to feel confident before taking the action. Confidence comes later. Confidence is the result, not the prerequisite. Now, let's talk about another thing that steals our momentum. And I'm guilty of this. I think everybody is now because we carry these little things in our pockets. It's distraction. And while I know we're living in an age of distraction, you can literally wake up with good intentions and lose 2 hours of your life before breakfast. And you know what I'm talking about here. It's that bone, right? Anybody else, you open your phone, you check one notification, just one, and suddenly you've watched 12 videos, right? And comments from strangers, and you checked your email and you looked at somebody's vacation photos. You've compared your life to theirs, even subconsciously, and wondered if you're doing enough and how you've mentally exhausted yourself before your day even begins. It's wild. And the scary thing is that most people don't even realize how much distraction is costing them. Not just time, energy, focus, creativity, dreams, because every minute you're consuming somebody else's life is a minute you're not creating your own. Oof, that one hurts, right? I know it hurts me too because I've been there, right? Especially with comparing. It's hard. There have been seasons where I've caught myself spending way too much time consuming content and not enough time creating content, right? Watching other people build instead of building, watching other people launch instead of launching, watching other people live instead of living. And here's the thing: comparison is one of the fastest ways to kill momentum because comparison creates a false finish line. You start believing, well, she's already doing it, so I can't do it. Or he's already successful, so that filled my spot. They're further ahead. They've got more followers. They've got more money. They've got more experience, whatever it is, right? And suddenly you convince yourself that your contribution doesn't matter. But can I tell you something? There is room for you. There's room for your voice. There's room for your story. There's room for your business. There's room for your dream because nobody on this earth can be you. Nobody has your exact experiences, your exact perspective, your exact gifts, your journey. And somebody out there in the whole wide world needs you and needs what you have to offer. Not what somebody else has, they need what you have. So stop disqualifying yourself, stop counting yourself out, stop assuming you're too late. You're not. Now let's talk about burnout though, right? That burnout's that pesky one because I know so many people right now are listening and they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. You're taking care of your children, your parents, your spouses, your clients, your coworkers, friends, employees, communities, all of that, everybody. And somewhere along the way, you become the last person on your priority list. You become the person who gets whatever energy is left over. And if we're being honest, some days there isn't much left, right? But you know what I've learned? Burnout doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes burnout looks like indifference. What I mean is you stop getting excited. You stop dreaming. You stop planning. You stop caring. You're saying things like, well, it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens, right? Or I'm just tired. And while rest is important, resignation is dangerous because you were not created to just survive, right? You were not put on this earth to spend decades going through the motions. You were made to experience life, right? You were made to create and to connect and to contribute and grow and evolve and become. And if you've lost touch with that version of yourself, I want you to know something. They're still in there. They're still inside of you. They haven't disappeared. They're exhausted. They're overwhelmed. They're buried under responsibilities, but they are still there. And I want you to start connecting with them. That person inside of you, the one that has the dreams and the vision, the one that believed in the possibility, the one that when New Year's Eve happened, 2026, you had that spark. Connect with that again. Who believed in the possibility, who wasn't afraid to imagine more. Because here's what I know. The second half of 2026 doesn't have to look like the first half. You can pivot and you can restart and you can redirect, reinvent, you can make these different decisions. You can create different results if you're not on the track you want to be in. And no, it will not happen overnight, but 6 months is a long time when you're intentional. 6 months can change your body, literally. 6 months can change your mindset, your finances, your relationships, confidence, business, entire future. 6 months is a huge chunk of time if you're willing to start. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, just intentionally. Because every transformation begins with a decision. And I want to ask you, what would happen if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment? What would happen if you stopped asking for permission? And what would happen if you simply decided that the second half of this year belongs to you? Think about that. What dream have you stopped dreaming about? Not the safe dream, not that safe thing, not the dream you casually mention at networking events, not the dream that sounds realistic and responsible. No, I don't want that for you. I want you to dream wild, the real dream, the one that used to make your heart race, that dream, the one that excited you so much that you couldn't stop thinking about it. What happened to it? Because I don't think most people stop dreaming. I think most people get tired of being disappointed. And there's a difference. And maybe you wanted to start the business and you got excited and you bought the courses and you listened to the podcast and you imagine what your future could look like. And then life happened, right? Maybe the business didn't grow as quickly as you hoped, or you didn't get the support you expected. And maybe you got overwhelmed and quietly put it on the shelf. Not because you stopped wanting it, because it hurt to keep wanting it, right? And I think so many people can relate to that. Maybe your dream wasn't a business, maybe it was getting healthy or losing weight or finally feeling confident in your own skin. Maybe it was writing a book or becoming a speaker or finding love. Maybe it was leaving a situation that no longer served you, but it was finally putting yourself first, right? Whatever it was, somewhere along the way, life got loud. Responsibilities got louder, bills got louder, stress got louder, and eventually the dream got quieter. Not gone, right? Still in there, just quieter. And I think that's what you want to hear today. The quiet dream is not the dead dream. And just because you haven't talked about it in 6 months doesn't mean it's over. And just because you haven't taken action lately doesn't mean you've missed your opportunity. And just because you've been distracted doesn't mean you've lost your purpose. You are allowed to want more. And I think that's something that people need permission to hear. You are still allowed to want more. You can love your family and want more, right? You can be grateful and want more. You can appreciate your life and still desire growth. Those things can exist at the same time. And somewhere along the way, society convinced us that wanting more was selfish, that wanting more meant we weren't grateful, that wanting more meant that somehow we were dissatisfied. But growth is human nature. Trees grow, right? Trees grow, flowers grow, children grow. We know that. Businesses grow. So why would you be any different? Why are you the one thing expected to stay exactly the same? You're not supposed to stay the same. You're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to expand. You're supposed to become. And maybe that's why some of you feel uncomfortable right now. Maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you've just simply outgrown the version of yourself maybe you've simply outgrown the version of yourself you've been living as. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's a completely different conversation because when you've outgrown a season of your life, everything starts feeling uncomfortable, right? The routines that once worked stop working and they just don't feel good. The habits that once excited you stop exciting you. The environment starts feeling small, right? The conversations feel repetitive. The goal no longer fits. And instead of realizing you've grown, many people assume that something is wrong with them. And nothing is wrong with you. Growth can feel uncomfortable, growth can feel confusing, growth can feel lonely sometimes, right? But growth is not a sign that you're broken, it's a sign that you're becoming. And I think that's where a lot of listeners are right now. You're in between versions of yourself, right? Especially mid year. And I think mid year subconsciously, we kind of do a little bit of a reevaluation here, right? You're in between versions of yourself. The old version no longer fits, but the new version hasn't fully arrived yet. And that's kind of uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable place to be. It's also a powerful place to be because transformation happens in the middle, not at the beginning and not at the end. Transformation happens in the middle. And that is exactly where we find ourselves today, halfway through 2026, in the middle of the year, in the middle of the goals, in the middle of the dreams, in the middle of the becoming. And I want you to think about something. If nothing changed between now and December 31st, how would you honestly feel? Not what you're supposed to say, not the positive answer, the honest answer. And if your life looked exactly the same in 6 months from now and you don't get that one little dream or one big dream, would you be happy? Would you be fulfilled? Would you be proud? Or would you secretly wish you had done just a little more? Right? That question can be uncomfortable. But discomfort often tells us where growth needs to happen. So you need to listen. You need to listen to yourself because you're truly important. All right. I want to talk about comparison for a minute because comparison has probably stolen more dreams than failure ever has. Think about it. Most people don't quit because they fail. Most people quit because they compare. They look at somebody who's farther ahead and decide they can never catch up. And so they quit. And they look at somebody else's chapter 22 and compare it to their chapter 3. And then they count themselves out. And I see it every single day. People convince themselves they're too late or too old or too inexperienced or their time has passed or too unknown, too behind. And meanwhile, the people with fewer resources, fewer connections, and fewer advantages are the ones succeeding. And why? Because they kept moving, right? The difference wasn't talent, the difference was action. And I think some of us need to stop asking whether we're qualified and start asking whether we're willing, because willingness will take you farther than confidence ever will. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to have the perfect plan. You don't need to have every answer either. You just need to be willing to take the step and the next one and the one after that. One of my favorite reminders is this: you don't have to see the entire staircase. You just have to see the next step. That's it. And maybe your step is small, and maybe it's making the phone call or signing up for the class or updating your website. Maybe it's starting the social media page, right? Or applying for the opportunity, maybe having the difficult conversation, and maybe just simply believing in yourself. Whatever it is, whatever your next step is, stop dismissing it because it's small. Small steps create big outcomes. Every transformation starts with one decision, and every success story starts with one decision, and every dream starts with one brave moment. And maybe today is that moment for you. And I want that moment for you. So here's to an amazing second half of 2026, right? Let's get that. I'm Jessica Cherry, and this is She Will Empower. You can catch brand new episodes every Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on KWVH 94.3 Wimberley Valley Radio. And of course, you can listen anytime, anywhere on your favorite podcast platform. Just search She Will Empower, and I'll be right there waiting for you. And if you're an early riser or trying to become one, come hang out with me every Tuesday morning from 7 to 9 a.m. on the Wake Up Club on Wimberley Valley Radio. It's cozy, it's fun, it's full of great music and real conversations. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to start your morning feeling grounded, connected, and a little more alive. Now, if you're in Central Texas and your nervous system feels fried, overwhelmed, or like you're running on fumes for way too long, I know the feeling. I would love to see you in person at Lone Star Sound Baths. Just search Lone Star Sound Baths on social media and you'll find me. I guide immersive sound bath experiences designed to help you soften, settle, and truly reset your mind, your body, and your spirit. It's one of the most healing offerings I provide, and serving our community in this way is something I deeply love. And you can also connect with me through Ladies Lifestyle Network Hayes County, where I host monthly empowerment and networking events all across the Hill Country. These gatherings feature powerful speakers, local nonprofits, incredible women-owned businesses, and some truly beautiful venues. Women come to these rooms to grow, to be seen, and to rise together. And I've watched lifelong friendships and game-changing business connections form right before my eyes. And if you want a more personal look behind the scenes, motherhood, entrepreneurship, healing, and real life as it unfolds, you can find me over on social media at Life of a Cherry Wife. And if you ever need help with social media and marketing, you can find me on Howdy Social. Truly, thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for showing up, for doing the work, and for choosing growth, even when it stretches you. And before you go, I want you to do one small thing for your future self, even something tiny, because tiny moves add up and tiny choices compound. And sometimes that one small decision becomes a moment that changes everything. Tiny moves create big impact, and that big impact could be the confidence boost you need today. So stay powerful, stay grounded, stay connected, and have the most amazing, beautiful day and week. I'll see you next time. Bye.